A very good afternoon. Myself, Ekta Dubey. We shall be starting in next 5 minutes, waiting for a few more interesting audiences to join us. Yeah, thank you. Hello all, a very good afternoon. Before I start, I would like to know if I'm audible. If someone can please let me know, am I audible and clear?
You're audible.
Thank you so much. So hello all, a very good afternoon. Myself, Ekta Dubey, on behalf of the Branalytics team and our partners, SIFI, Freshworks and OzoneTel, we welcome you all on a very interesting webinar, which is Future-Proof CX through omni-channel communication as a service. Today, we have an interesting set of speakers who will share insights on how SIFI, along with the key technology partners, Freshworks and OzoneTel, can help orchestrate and automate frictionless end-to-end connected customer experiences for your organization. Before we start the roundtable, would like to make a request to all the attendees to be on mute while speakers are taking the session. You can share your questions and thoughts in the chat box. We will have an open session for the Q&A where the attendees can ask a question, if any, to the respective speakers. The guidelines are, you need to raise your hands, unmute yourself on your video, introduce yourself, your company and designation, and put your questions to our speakers. We look forward to make this webinar engaging and interesting, and this cannot be possible without our audiences. So we are excited to announce that we are going to run a contest here where we'll have 3 winners at the end of the session. The winners will win exciting vouchers based on their engagement level, and this engagement level will be decided upon how active you guys are on the chat box. Share your feedback on the link that I will share on the feed on the chat box, and engage through Q&A session and remain throughout the webinar. How long you stay in the webinar, it will also make this very interesting. So now, moving forward, I am happy to introduce our speakers for the day. We have Mr. Jagjit Singh Mathuru, Head Business and Product, Voice, SaaS and Collaborations with SIFI. Ms. Suhana Somana, Regional Head South with OzoneTel. Mr. Raghvendra R, Lead Partner Sales Engineer with Freshworks. So happy to introduce and welcome all our speakers. Now over to you, Mr. Jagjit, to run the show. And thank you for being here with us today.
Jagjit, you have to unmute.
Yeah. Thanks, Ekta. And good afternoon, everyone. A very warm welcome to each one of you. Through this webinar, our attempt is to take you through a journey on how the context of communication has changed in today's environment and how relevant it is for the enterprise, that we work for, and how can we make it more meaningful. Just allow me a minute to share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, Jagjit.
Yeah. Thanks, Ekta. So if you look at today's context, we are in a midst where we have a connected customer who's having knowledge explosion. There is a lot of information that is available for the customer at his behest. Just at a click away, he has multiple touch points through which the information can be made available to him. Now he's a spoiled brat, so he can choose whether he wants to do it himself, or he can have people like us who are servicing him in and around him to give him either a customized solution or to give him a solution which he's willing to pay for. He's willing to walk that extra mile, give us an extra money, and just for the sake of getting what he wants to get. So he wants to be different, he wants to do differently, because he's more interested and keen in driving an experience that he gets through the organization. Vis-a-vis, we have an enterprise, who's always been struggling, continues to struggle, because the environment today is quite competitive. The competition is fierce. There's new age technology that is glaring at him, and he always wants to be staying close to the customer, and hence option of moving to cloud or in a hybrid environment is something which he needs to explore. So it is the fight for survival for the fittest, and unless he is able to do that, the response to business, if it's not in line with what is expected, there is always competition who's willing to walk that extra mile and grab the opportunity. Now, in this environment, you'll see, even when the environment is so competitive, there are still two types of enterprises, that survive here. One is an enterprise which has been there and continues to operate with the legacy infrastructure that they have. They have communication that operate in silos. And since the communication is operating in silos, the data points that they collect from those communication, is actually sporadic and it's spread across. So the approach that they actually follow is quite non-collaborative, and they, because it is the legacy infrastructure which is end of life or it's not supported, they need to maintain that infrastructure. It requires a lot of money to be spent around it and a lot of people to manage it. So it becomes highly capex intensive and people intensive. So the focus still remains on running the infrastructure rather than focusing on what their competency is and what they need to drive. So getting into new age technologies and getting that integrated back with their existing infrastructure becomes quite a challenge for them. Whereas there are still organizations which understand what a CX value is, and they're striving to move towards it. So what they look for is, whether they can have a single interface for their communication needs, which can be made available basis the context in which they survive. Can it be orchestrated back with the organization across their various divisions so that it can make some meaningful sense out of it? It is not too heavy on their pocket. And also, in terms of infrastructure, they can choose the infrastructure, whether they want to have it integrated back with their existing infrastructure, or they want to move to cloud, or they want to still continue to operate in the hybrid environment. But with all this, it is also important that they take care of the security needs and the solution stays compliant within the governing body norms that have been laid out. So these are two enterprise environments that exist and we survive in. But what is needed today is, if you have to exist and survive, then you need to give a frictionless experience, both for their internal customers as well as for the external customers. That's actually become a norm in today's year and going forward as well. And that is possible only when you are able to deliver a communication layer which integrates well between the business and the customer. So that can be done only when you're having that orchestrated with omni-channel communication engagements that can be built across the value chain of the organization, and that can be integrated. So for that, we have CaaS, Communication as a Service Platform, which will help you to do that. Now, in terms of statistics, if you look at the stalwarts that are there in the industry, IDC carried out a survey, and they found out that about 80% of the customers still focus on speed, convenience, and knowledge to choose their choice of enterprise to deliver value to them. 73% of the customers want interconnected customer communication, and they want it to be contextual in nature. And the focus there remains that how it can be integrated back through the value chain that the organization has. And 70% of the customers are experience driven, and they still focus on the entire value that the organization brings to them. And if you look at the market that is there, it's about $17.9 billion US market by 2024. And 55% is the growth rate that we expect. It's currently giving us 55% growth rate. It's much higher than, earlier it was at about 33% in 2020. So while these are only statistics, it just goes to show that, the kind of evolution that is taking place in the communications as a service portfolio and the adoption rate that is there in the industry today. Why CaaS? I'm sure each one of you has this question. Now, to help us understand why CaaS, Gartner has gone one step ahead and defined CaaS into a 5-layer structure. Of course, and the service cannot be extended without network layer. So network layer being the most important layer for the service that we want to introduce to each one of you, with IoT being the new kid on the block. Then we have the second layer, which is the connected layer. And we use, you can use low-key APIs to integrate services like SMS, voice, probably WhatsApp for business, or AI and ML, to extend to your customers. Further, followed up with a wrapper layer, which helps you to authenticate, authorize, help in getting notifications across to your customers, whether it's an internal customer or an external customer. You can introduce omni-channel communication, IVR, or even your payment gateway solutions there. Then this brings us to the fourth layer, which extends the complete stack of services built on the layer 1 to 3. And it extends to you services which are new age services like remote learning, CRM, telemedicine, and also contact center solutions. But all this is possible only when you go to the layer 5, and where you have an integration done between the marketplace, which is the enterprise and the partner, so that you can build an ecosystem around it. And now this can be done through specific low-key APIs and the codes that we built around the customer and the compliant solutions that are existing in the environment today to run successfully provisioning, monitoring, and billing for the customer. So the customer still remains the customer-centric focus over here. Now, to do this, it's very critical to understand that the communication as a service layer orchestrates through the entire value chain of the organization and not necessarily touches upon sales, marketing, or customer service. In fact, it goes beyond that, and it touches upon layers like operations, distribution management, supplier chain, so on and so forth. And the way to do it is that you have to have an understanding of what their core competencies are, what their core functionalities are, and build solutions around the same, so that you can have inbound and outbound interactions taking place within the organization and outside the framework of the organization. So all channels of communication can be utilized basis the context in which the channel needs to be utilized, and in terms of integration, if it is seamlessly integrated, then the data points can be used for making sensible business decisions as well. Now, this brings us to the critical blocks that are important to ensure that the communication as a service layer is orchestrated well in the organization and it runs seamlessly. So for that, you will have to ensure that there is infra that is available. Now, that infrastructure needs to have all the right components that are there. It needs to have the redundant capabilities. It needs to be secure, and it should be capable of allowing you to integrate back with your legacy infrastructure in case you have that and you want to utilize that. So that is possible only when you're using omni-channel communication, and that can be integrated back in your systems and processes of your organization. But this, like I told you earlier, we will need to do this in an environment which is compliant and secure. Unless security is extended as a key component, this CAS as a portfolio may not work as meaningfully as you would want it to work for your organization. And since you're looking at an infrastructure which can be either in a cloud or a hybrid environment, of course, it will be cost sensitive, and you can also make sensible business decisions basis the data points that you have, because we have strong analytics that can be built around it, and you can also make it ROI driven. So Gartner also goes ahead and helps us understand for an enterprise who chooses to go ahead with such a structure, that there are two types of models that are available in the market. If you want to choose, one is the developer model, which is basically a do-it-yourself model, where the normal recommendation is that if you want to build specific applications and that's at the build stage of those applications that you want to go ahead and introduce CAS as a service, that's the time when we would recommend you to go ahead with developer as a model. And because it will require a lot of capabilities in-house with your IT team to have a fair understanding of how this needs to be done and how it can be integrated back with a service provider extending infrastructure to you. The other model that is available is the managed service provider model, and that's the model that's normally recommended, because in this model, the IT support that is needed within the organization is very minimal, and you can then go ahead and focus on your core competencies and let the managed service provider manage the services for you end to end. And also what happens is, because the infrastructure is made available to you, which is future ready, it can be molded and adopted to the environment that you're in currently, or you continue to be in the near future. So if you have made a decision that you want to go ahead with CAS, and then you've chosen that you want to go ahead with the managed service provider model, it will bring you to the next appropriate question, that how do you go about choosing a right partner? Now, there are several points that are critical in choosing a right partner, but most important being that whether the partner has the experience and the ability in managing use cases around industry verticals, whether they have done that in the past, whether they continue to do so, and whether they have tasted success. Once you have evaluated that, then you will have to also look at whether the product roadmap that they have is future ready, it is compelling, and whether they have all the facets that are required to have to give you a omni-channel communication value in the organization. That being in place, If you're having a wide reach in the market, you are spread across geographies, then you should be also looking at a partner who's present within the India framework and abroad, so that you don't have to keep swapping partners for your India needs as well as for your needs across the globe. Needless to say that since this is a OPEX based model and it is a SaaS based service, so you will have the flexibility and the scalability that is required, but you will have to see whether the partner is uh, the supplier agnostic in terms of your telecom resources that you need, whether they are supplier agnostic or they are supporting a specific supplier. Because with the supplier agnostic partner, you will have redundancy building. You will also have the choice of choosing the partner of your choice, the telecom partner of your choice, to have the infrastructure laid out. They will also have the team capabilities to have the integration done, because a strong team would be required to understand your systems and processes so that they can work hand in hand with you to build the solution back for you. And once the problem statement is understood, orchestration is very critical so that it runs seamlessly across your organization. Then once the solution is built in, you will need to get onboarding. You need to get your team onboarded for how the solution runs, and you will need to have the learning curve quickly adopted so that you can run seamlessly with the solution that has been delivered in the organization. Of course, needs to be compliant, and it needs to have strong analytical capabilities so that you have reports that can be sent out. You can study those reports, and those reports can be used for making some sensible business decisions. Now at this stage, I would like to introduce you to my colleague Suhana, who will help you with a fair understanding of the use cases that we have handled together. Suhana, over to you.
Thank you, Jagjit. Uh, as rightly said by Jagjit, uh, choose a right partner. So there has been points that he said seamless, frictionless. So we talk about uh, the experience with your client or internal experience being seamless. So Jagjit, if you can just move to the next slide. So there is a question for the team. Old question. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. So when there's a buzz in the market saying that omni-channel and multi-channel. So when we talk about frictionless or seamless experience, so our colleague Raghavendra will surely agree to this point, saying that they keep getting like customers going in for multiple communication mode like voice. They say there is Messenger and there is WhatsApp. So maybe 10-15 years back we had communication which used to be only Ekta, I think there is one more poll question which is coming. If you can stop this poll question. Thank you. So coming back to this omnichannel, so 10-15 years back, we had only two mode of communication, which was voice and email. Now, customers, like how Jagdeep said, spoiled. So they have an option to communicate with their vendor through call, email, chat, WhatsApp. There's multiple windows. So every vendor, he opts for like he goes for a chat option, he goes for messenger option, then he goes for WhatsApp. So this is a multiple window which he's going in. So what we are talking about is omni-channel, having all the communication under one screen or one window. So one is it's seamless. The information which has been there collated is moved seamlessly to the system. The second is the experience of the child customer. So every customer doesn't like any, like if he has spoken something to the customer care a couple of minutes back, and then he comes back on WhatsApp and he says, okay, I had spoken to your executive and I want to know what is the status. So usually that communication, that information is not there, is where that client will have that kind of a uncomfort, or he says, you guys don't know what is happening with me. So that's why we say, okay, we are giving all the communication in one window, and the information what is there or what communicated by the client is captured and is moved on. So in any point of time, if the client calls back or he connects to the customer care at any mode of communication, be it WhatsApp or an email or a chat, executive taking the call knows that there is this is a history which has happened. So we talked about omni-channel, where it is pocket friendly, where you don't have to have multiple windows and multiple agents handling this communication. So this is the next say step to future. Next slide, Jagjeet.
So Swana, are you saying that omni-channel stands out against multi-channel?
Yes.
And if
Uh,
so, why?
Okay, if you talk about multi-channel, basically what we say is like there are various mode of communication that you have, and there are multiple windows that, so you need to have multiple windows to communicate. So what we are saying is we are putting everything together at one window, and you can the experience is much smoother for an executive who's taking a call or a chat or an email, versus an executive who's onto multiple window, and he's just swapping through the windows to know what is happening. I hope that answers
So
the
if I have
question.
understood, yeah, so if I have understood you correctly, Swana, you're saying that, there are different ways in which you need to communicate with a customer. Now, you've
Yes.
taken an example of a customer who's reaching out to customer service, but then a customer, like I mentioned earlier, could be a customer which is an internal customer also, you're reaching out from one department to the other. And in case you have the choice of communication available to you, then you can choose the depending on where you are and what you're doing, you can choose the medium of communication, but the context stays relevant and the data points also travel along with the change of communication. I hope that is
Yes.
my understanding.
Yes. Yes. You're right, Jagdeep. You're bang on.
Thank you.
So can we go to the next slide?
That's
So
a
this is a
poll
polling
question
question.
for everybody. Yeah. Thank you for your participation in the poll question. Swana, can we move with the next slide?
Sure. So here, it's very interesting use case that I would like to share. We had a client who wanted basically India is like has got a diverse audience where different ethnicity, and then there are places where there's not much of it's media dark location where communication is reaching out to those location, or the internet connectivity is not very high, or maybe there's major power supply issues over there. So uh, there's no TV or there's no media, or there's, we call it as media dark location. So this client wanted to reach out to those internal interior region, and they wanted to they wanted to advertise their product over there. So what is a way, or what is a mode to communicate to those locations? So they came up with an idea that the best media is entertainment. So the idea was put on in the table, and they said, okay, we want to reach out, and entertainment is a key for us to reach out to those locations. So we came up with an idea saying that let's give them a solution where every person in that location will have a basic feature phone with them. So and at any given point in time, that they will keep their communication on, so that the charges, enough charges available, though the internet doesn't work there. So what we said is, we give a number to them, they give a missed call. So there is no point that they will be charged for the call. So there's a missed call he gives, and within few minutes there's a callback which happens to them, where 15 minutes of song or a music is played, played along with the advertisement in between. So this was a very innovative idea, which actually worked out, clicked big time, and one is an entertainment which was given to those media dark regions. Two, the advertisement of the product or the reach to those interior area was high because of this particular solution. So it was actually recognized by Keynes also for being an innovative idea. In fact, Jagjeet, if you look at, we can actually customize the solution basis the requirement they have. I can even talk
How
about yes, yes, Jagjeet.
how would you do that, Suhana? If you can throw some light on that.
Okay, here we are talking about a missed call where the person gives a missed call and then he receives a call and then he hears the music. Other way around, we had one more client who wanted to do an awareness kind of a program where he wanted to educate the rural youth. Basically, English is something which is a big challenge in those locations, or spoken English, or that was a challenge that they said, okay, let's kind of help the youth of India, where they can learn English. So what they did was, they gave an option where the youth can he can schedule a call. So he gives a missed call, and then there is a schedule. So there is a call which will call back happen to the youth and the teacher, and they will have a live class for a couple of minutes or half an hour or so, where they can communicate to each other. So that's one more way of using the solution. One more very interesting thing where one of our client actually wanted to do is, he wanted to have an engagement with his say with the users, or the footfall to their he wanted to increase the footfall to his location. So what he did was, he said, okay, you come to my it's basically for petrol bunk. So he said, you fill the petrol or diesel, and you can send me an SMS. So you send an SMS with a bill number and your, in case, like once every month or every day, there will be a lucky draw. The lucky person will win an lorry. So that was something which they came up, and there's quite a lot of hype on it, and they had a lot of footfall coming in, because every lorry driver would like to own one lorry. So that was one more project which one of our client actually took it up. So we'll go to the next slide.
Quite interesting, Swana. The way I see it, this can
Yes.
also be used for uh, verticals like manufacturing or for healthcare or pharma, where in case there is
Yes.
a communication that needs to be made across to multiple people, the message can be recorded and can be relayed out using the platform that we have, that is deployed on cloud, and those
Yes.
responses to those messages can also be captured back. Now if you want to convert it into a contest, yeah, you can do that. If you want to capture responses in terms of customer survey, or if you want to engage your distributor or your supplier, or probably you want to run this for employees, where you want to communicate messages to the employees and take their feedback, I'm sure the same platform can be used. I hope my understanding
Yes.
is right, Suhana.
Yes, absolutely right, Jagdeep. In fact, we have voice bot services where, for example, a fintech company where he's giving a call or he wants to capture the feedback from the collection perspective, saying that okay, your due date is so and so. I hope you will be making the payment by this date, and the voice bot can actually capture the feedback, saying that okay, I'll be making the payment by or he says okay there will be a delay in making the payment, that can be captured, and the data can be collated and be used for the next action point.
So it
So I hope.
reinforces
Yes.
it reinforces the thought process that the solution is agnostic to the industry, and it can
Yes.
work across divisions and departments, because the same
Yes.
solution, you agreed, it can work for an HR department. The same solution can work for a supply chain department. The same solution can work in case you want to communicate to your customers related to customer survey, or if you want, for that matter, you want to engage your suppliers and distributors and carry out contests or run information to them, the solution works well.
Absolutely, you're right, Chachi.
Right, Swanas. Should I move to the next slide?
Sure. Jagjeet, I think the slide is not moved.
It's moved, Swana. Maybe it's taking some time to coming up.
Yes. So now this here we are talking about evolving market, so which we have been which has been pitched that every industry is working on. Ki how do I better my solution, or how do I better my services? So there are product based, like it this particular thing is like before it used to be only customer experience, or how I better my customer experience. Now what we are talking about is more of like how who is my audience, what kind of audience I have, what is the gender that I have, who all are reaching out to me. So there are like multiple, understanding what our client looks at. So unlike the previous, where they were saying, okay, I want a good quality calls and I want to attend my call and I want to pick the call within 3 minutes or three rings and then finish my call within 3 minutes. Now it has evolved much more, where they are talking about. I need to know what is the tone my agent is using, what is the tone the client is using, what is it like, what is my audience, whether it's women or men. So that's where they know okay, who are their clientele and what kind of calls they get, what is the emotion or what is the tone they use. So there are like multiple level of say study that which we say data analytics that our client are doing now. So we came up with a solution called speech analytics, so which is integrated with the call center solution, that is a cloud agent, where it picks up your whatever data, like say what is the tone of the agent, what is the tone of the, I'm repeating the same thing, the tone of the client, and this kind of data, we give the data analysis for the 100% of the call, not like unlike the previous where they take bits of like 10-20 call, and then there's a data analytics done on those calls. Rather, we give you the full data of the 100% of calls which is coming in your call center, and you get an update of what kind of call or what is the result. There are cases where a client is very particular about whether certain keywords are used, like say I I just say, okay, welcome to SIFI. That may be your call center tone. So that may be the keyword that an agent uses when he picks up the call. So welcome to SIFI. How may I assist you? So that's one of the keywords which our client or SIFI will be looking at. Is an agent using that keyword? So even that analysis, we say, okay, the agent is using this keyword. It can be like, is an agent waiting for the client to finish the conversation, and or is he interrupting while talking? So those kind of analysis we do give it to the client, so which actually has been appreciated and which has helped out. So Jagjit, I hope you will be having certain clientele who would have actually looked at such solution.
Sure, Swana. So, my takeaway for me from this slide, I'm speaking on behalf of the participants, is that one is that, you have data, you analyze the data, you collate that, and you make, reports which are more meaningful for the organization. And second is that, in case you're using an engine, which is a speech analytics engine, at the background, you'll pick up the keywords, understand the pulse and the pulse of the conversation, and give data inputs around that as well, so that the decision making is quick, and in case there is an escalation that needs to be done for the same call, can be routed to the respective person or a department, so that the action is taken immediately, because these triggers that you're talking about are all call to action triggers. And if it reaches the right audience, uh, the result will be much better than what they are expecting it to be.
In fact, Jagdeep, this data analytics, it's not only for support or call center, but even the marketing team are using this data analytics for their, action plan. So they get to know what kind of audience they have. They get to know whom they have to reach out, whom they have to target, depending on the kind of, analysis they get from this uh, data that we share.
Not only that, because you're integrating a speech analytics engine, and if you have a script, normally that script would be available in English. And if you are present across multiple regions, you want to have that script converted into a specific language, and you want to, reach out at one go to multiple people, I'm sure you'll be able to do that as well.
Yes, we can do that. So, Jagdish, if you look at, we have been evolving and we have been trying to look at what next to do. So that's why we say future ready. So that's a whole pitch that we're looking at. So
Thank you,
we
Swana.
can, yeah, we can go to the next slide, Jagdish. So while this, okay, we have come to the next slide where we are talking about uh, for any business, it is important that the client or the end customer is reached out within next 5 minutes. The faster you close a deal, so you need to be there when the customer is deciding or the customer has a requirement. You reach out to him at that particular minute. So we had a client who wanted to reach out to their end users the minute the end user reaches out to them. So so what we did was, every time a person used to used to get to the web page and used to submit their document, immediately there was a call trigger which was going to the end user and the agent, and they used to trigger the call, and they used to close the requirement immediately. So what we did was every time there was an update coming in a web page, immediately the trigger call was going to the agent and the client, and we could, so the closure ratio actually increased for that client. In fact, one more case that we have very interesting, where e-commerce sector, where for them it is very important that every time they buy or there is a product in the uh, they have selected and kept it. So it is important that it gets sold out, or the person buys it immediately, or he closes the order. So what this particular e-commerce did was that every time there was some kind of a product which was selected and kept in the cart, so maybe in the next 20 minutes or 30 minutes there was a trigger call done to the client and the agent, and the agent is to ask, is there any concern, or do you want me to help you out to close the order? So that way, the closure or the order closure was getting faster. A lot of times it's all about the minutes. So like if I pick up a product and I keep it in the cart and I close it immediately, it's a sale which is happening. Or if I leave it in the cart, so maybe after an hour or two I'll think, okay, do I really require it, or do I really have to buy it? So what this e-commerce thought, okay, let me not give that gap of 1 hour or 2 hour or one day. So I rather reach out to the person who selected the product and kept it in the cart next 30 minutes. Or there's a time slot that they're given. And that actually worked out wonderfully for that e-commerce. The sale actually went higher compared to what was happening before. Any questions or anything or takeaway, Jagjeet, about this solution that you would like to
No,
know?
Swana, please go ahead.
Yeah. Can we go to the next slide? So while the slide changes, there are options where we look at IVR solution also, where not only agent calling, the minute a person gets into to the web page, or they select any kind of solution, and there can be an IVR trigger also going to the end client, talking about, okay, these are the offers going on, why don't you close it? So we can actually mix match not only the voice call, we can even have an IVRs in place, we can even have an SMS in place. So there are multiple things that you can work on, just the way how I spoke over the first slide. So it's all about what you ask, we can stitch it together. So this is a very interesting case that we had, who had their international presence, and they had the tech team sitting over in India, and they had other colleagues sitting in other location. And this client had a maybe a challenging situation, where they have an app, and their end users uses the app, and they find any concern in the app. So what they do is they trigger a complaint on the app saying that, okay, this information is not right. And the agent sitting in India was trying to reach out to the person who's raised a complaint or a ticket, saying that, okay, you have raised a ticket saying that this data or information is not right. So how can I, like, they take the information and then close the call. So what was happening was, every time the agent was calling up to uh, the end user was not picking up the call because the call was coming from a different location, or the number was India number. So what they came up is, they knew the end users. They took multiple DIDs or multiple numbers from all other locations, and every time the agent was calling, he was using the specific DID for that location and calling the end user and taking the consent and closing the ticket. So that way, his connectivity, the pickup ratio picked up high time. Actually, the pickup ratio was 40, and there are major tickets which is open, and escalations happening, saying that okay, this is not getting close. But after they took a solution and they took the DID, the pickup ratio went much higher. The second thing that very interesting thing that they had is uh, when this agent or when the technical person was reaching out and he was collecting the data, he had to reach out to other location to to get the app information updated, or do the changes and all. So for them the internal communication was also very easy, because the reach out was easy because of the solution they took from us. So this is one of the good case that we can talk about, and the same has been replicated with others. Uh, and Yeah, anything that you would like to know, Raghavendra or Jagdeep, about this case study?
Thank you, Sona. I think it's self-explanatory. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Can you go to the next slide, Jagdeep? So when we are talking about staying connected and multi-location access, reaching out to customer, speech analytics, we are talking about so many other things. So, so what happened during pandemic was, it was like a eye opener for a lot of customers, and a lot of industry realized that they need to be ready for any kind of situation. They came up with, they said, okay, I want to go light, I want things to be future ready, I want to have a personalized communication with my customer. I should be able to My customer should be able to reach out to me anytime. There shouldn't be any break in communication with them. The transition should be smooth, effortless communication. I require security. I need a lot of things in place. I want it should be an easy scalability. I don't have to spend anything on upgradation. Everything should be light. I should be able to move from one location to other location. These kind of things came up during this pandemic. If I think Raghavan, if you would have Jagdish, you would have seen the scenario where customers said, "Okay, I'm moving out of my premises. I don't want any infra in my office. I want to go totally live. Tomorrow, I have any scenario, I should be able to work from any location, and my customer experience should be the best." So that is something which every client has asked, and we have worked towards it, where we are saying that okay, you can use the solution sitting any place in any location. You want any kind of a you want to add more agents, or you want to add some feature, you have to just send a communication to us and we will add it in your account. You don't have to go to office, or you don't have to be physically present, or we don't have to be physically present to get any kind of a scalability in any of the location. So something that we have been successfully been able to do. In fact, during the pandemic, I think you would have seen scenarios where bankers, initially the call centers were not working because of the employees were not able to come to office, or the telecom was not ready, or they were not ready with the infra. So that actually was a learning for every industry, and they actually have come up, or the thought process of moving to cloud has actually uh, come in everybody's mind right now. So when they're talking about reaching out, they again came with saying that okay, how safe is it? How secure is it? How can I grow if I have to, like if I have to just add in agents? How fast can it be done? So these were the questions that they had, and we have an answer for all. So if you can go to the next slide. So here we talk about error-free deployment, cloud deployment. So you don't have to actually depend on our solution, any kind of say infra or anything. It's just that you tell us the requirement, we capture the requirement, and we build a solution and give it to you. and very smooth transition of like scalability. If you look at, if I'm talking about, say today you have 100 agents, and then you say, okay, I need to add multiple agents or multiple connects in multiple locations. So I can actually add it and give it to you. So I'm ready to get things done immediately, a very smooth transition. And I have location in all say region, and even internationally my presence is there. So that's a very thing that where customer doesn't have to look out here. I need to have a vendor for India and I have to have a vendor abroad. That is not required. So you have everything here with us. Can we go to the next slide, Chachi? So this question which has been happening with a client is how secure it is. What is the security option that you have? What about my data? How secure is it? So that's one question which has been asked, because when we say cloud, everything is there in cloud. So how secure is it? So we have we are ISO certified, and we have all the certification in place. And when it comes to even the security, where you're talking about login of agent, because agent is going to sit in remote location and log in. So we have a secure login option. We even talk about two-factor authentication also when the agent is logging in, and even the admin also can sit and can look at what is happening or take the data or the information sitting anywhere. So that's something that we actually confirm to all our clients. So when we are talking about security and information communication that we are talking about right now, so there is something where our friend, our colleague Raghavendra can actually help. So Raghavendra, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Swana. And before that, I think we have this poll question coming up on the screen. So if you could really address this, which says that which of the following are critical success factors for your organizations, and the options are on your screen, whether it's going to be 24/7, 365 hours of support, or you want it to be secure, reliable, or compliant, or you prefer a cloud and a hybrid model, or is it going to be a ready and infra scalable, flexible model, or finally the geographical reach? So I think you have just around 26 seconds have gone, and the participation is looking really good. I think 16% of the audience have responded to the poll, with security and reliability being the most important feature or the preference for the audience. I think that was more expected actually. So that's where Suhana was mentioning about the security aspect of the various SaaS players and the products. And we could see the audience are also reflecting the same thoughts of Suhana here, where they want their data to be secure, reliable, and compliant. And I think it's winning hands down with 69%. I think it would be great if more participants had replied, but still, I think based on that, we could really extrapolate that the audience emotions and opinion is all about having that security and reliability in the SaaS provider. Yeah. So I'll just pull out my screen, and then probably I'll just go through the slides. Yeah, so over to the particular topic wherein we are going to see a framework wherein in terms of how we will be able to delight the customers effortlessly through the various channels that we're going to talk about. So in this case, by the reference of customers, we mean both the internal employees or stakeholders who are going to use the product, or it can be the end customer of your brand who are going to interact with your brand. So that's where the term customer comes into picture. And so it is going to be both a combination of the internal employees and also the customers. And so how important is it to delight your end customers using the various products which you have in the market right now? So that is one part of the particular topic which we are going to see in this particular section. And then how the particular brand is going to satisfy or fulfill the expectation in terms of offering the top-notch service. Because when the requests are going to be incoming, whether it is going to be raised by the end customer, by the end user, or by the internal employees, how soon does it get addressed by your team? So that is one part which you're going to see. And then finally, how easy is it to deploy these solutions in life? So if you're going to have a particular use case in your organization, how we are going to use our help in deploying the product in order to satisfy or fulfill that use case. So how easy will it be for you to do that? And how early you can do that? How faster you can do that? So that is one part which we are going to cover. And as you could see here, we have a lot of coverage in terms of the various upcoming feature or the emerging trends that is going to be there in any digital transformational era, in terms of having that omni-channel touch points, or how you will be able to engage the end users or the end customers using the various chatbots and other AI and stuff, and how as a brand you will be able to engage directly with your end user. So let us say one of the end user is stuck somewhere. How easy is it for your brand persona or for the customer service representative or for that employee representative to start sharing their screen and then seeing that this is where the problem is, and you can resolve them on a jiffy to co-browsing. And then how you can set up the system in such a way that all the incoming inquiries can fall into a single ticketing system, and how they can be assigned to your customer service representatives or towards your internal employees or the operation managers for their approval, and how that flows goes through. So all these things we will see in this particular section. And I'm going to move to the next slide now. That's wherein initially in terms of delighting customers anywhere, I would like to really mention about a specific use case wherein during the COVID period, if you have a look at the typical citizens, they were all panic stricken, right? So if I'm going to be tested positive for COVID, my panic mode is going to be at the maximum. So I'm going to kind of keep thinking whether I need hospitalization or whether I can self-isolate myself at home, or what is the quarantine procedure. So I was kind of panic stricken. So this happened in many cities across India, right? So one of our particular use case wherein we were able to elevate the panic of the citizens through the ticketing system. So you can think how that can happen. So that's wherein we were able to deploy chatbots, wherein we were able to get in the information of that particular citizen who was tested positive. We already had set up a sequence of questions for which the citizens should reply in terms of choosing the right answer, like what is the body temperature, or what are the symptoms that they are facing, and what are some of the parameters which they can test at home themselves. So post that, we were able to guide those particular citizens towards the correct course of action. So in this case, if the symptoms are going to be very minimal, then we gave a confirmation through the state government's mobile app by saying that they can home isolate themselves rather than getting admitted in the hospital. So in this case, if you have a look at the system, the ticketing management system, or the system through which the citizen had interacted with the government, it had delighted the customers, because the customers in this case were the end citizens, and they were quite confident that if this is going to be the symptom, then they need to home isolate rather than rushing to the hospital. So this reduced the load on the doctors and nurses, because already they were panic stricken customers coming into the hospitals, but now it was able to reduce that. So from a customer's perspective, that is a customer delight, right? You are trying to reduce the panic of the citizens. So that was one use case. And the other use case was basically in terms of having the customer queries addressed across the platforms for a leading BFSI customer who was across the marketplace. And the particular customer here would be raising a simple query like, where is my refund? Or I've already paid for a particular service, but still the account has not been transferred of the remaining money. So these kind of scenarios are wherein the customers get panic stricken and they want a response immediately. So we were able to leverage the power of bots, leverage the power of ticket management module and stuff, and we were able to delight the customers instantly. And there were some cases wherein most of the questions could be directly found onto the support portal, because let us say if 1,000 customers of a particular brand are going to reach out, around 60 to 70% of those questions are going to be repetitive. That is, you are going to learn from the experiences of the previous customers. So that's where the self-service portal comes into picture, where you are going to enable the knowledge bases, the frequently asked questions, and those repositories will help the customers first to take a look at what are that situations that requires further help from the brand. If some of the situations can be resolved by themselves, then they can do it without even raising an issue or a request. So that is some of the use cases which help to delight the customers on a top-notch level. And moving on to the next slide is wherein how to master the service excellence. So in this case, let us consider the scenario of a typical trade platform. So as you can see here, in a typical trade platform, you will have a lot of intraday trading going on. And if you're going to have a put or a call option done for the day, and suddenly your system is going to be disrupted due to some reason. And if that customer is going to raise a query, that needs to be resolved as soon as possible. You cannot wait until the end of the day, because the trading session will get over by the end of the day. So this was one live use case wherein we needed to resolve complaints at the shortest possible time. So this is wherein the mastering the service excellence comes into picture. So how you will be able to get all the incoming queries allocated to the right group within the shortest possible time. So you will not be having an operator who will get all the requests and then see to whom it is going to be allocated. And after that, the customer service representative responding to the request. That is not going to do a world of good here. So that's wherein the automation happens, and immediately the incoming queries are getting allocated, or in fact auto allocated to the specific customer service representative, and it gets resolved then and there, so that the glitches which are going to be on the trading platform will get corrected in the shortest possible time. And this metrics, like the resolution time, got sped up like anything, and the cost per inquiry also reduced. And also how the system was able to capture the frequently asked questions and the response, wherein a customer service representative will be able to directly respond to a ticket by not typing things again and again. So that reduces the unproductive hours or the rush on which a customer service representative is going to be. So using that system, the attrition of the agents reduced, because they were able to maintain a healthy rate of retention of the agents, because the agents were spending their time in the most important issue which they had to solve, rather than unproductive things like typing responses and stuff, which was automated through canned responses and other stuff. And this accelerated their time to productivity. So that is what you see on the third point in terms of the business benefits. And so this is one food of thought for you as well as of how your brand can improvise the service excellence, wherein you can fulfill the customer's inquiries within the shortest period of time, and also your agents or the employees who are going to attend to the customer queries can really take the service top notch. And next use case is all about how,
Raghavendra,
yes, yes,
Raghavendra, can I share my understanding on this?
sure, sure, Jagdish.
So now that you've taken an example of a bot helping out with the agent, improvising on agent productivity and the customer service excellence,
Yes,
it's a classic example of how you used omni channel over here, because you begin
right.
your interaction by using a bot where you have standard FAQs being laid out,
Yeah,
and the responses to the FAQs are listed out for the customer. Now, when I am speaking about the customer over here, it's not really an end customer necessarily, because
exactly.
like I explained earlier, this
Yes,
same system can be used for tracking a patient inquiry, or
exactly.
a response to the patient inquiry, or for that matter, a supplier who's following up on a sales credit note, or stock return.
Yes,
It can be used there as well. If the systems and the processes are stitched up
exactly.
well at the background, and once the response it is outside the standard FAQ response, then you can always have a live chat agent come in
Yes,
and answer to those queries. Now, that agent could be a customer service agent, or could be a department person
exactly.
who's replying to those queries with a
Yes,
delay or instantaneously. And still, after that, also, in case there is no resolution to that, you can engage the customer with a call,
exactly.
and the resolution to that can be using a response to that can be using a message, a plain message, or a WhatsApp.
Yeah,
So it's a classic example of using all mediums of communication, whether it's voice messaging, WhatsApp, bot. And if I also say that you want to integrate IVR, which is an interactive voice response, which means for a particular FAQ you have pre-recorded messages which are already there, and
yeah,
that needs to be relayed back, and response needs to be captured. That can as well be integrated. I hope my
yes.
understanding is correct, Raghavendra.
Yes, yes, Jagjit, you are absolutely on spot with it. And also thanks for clarifying the fact that the end customer in this case doesn't only mean the customers, it can also be the internal employees. So one use case where I could think of was in terms of one of the leading e-commerce organization trying to channelize their asset management, change management, and other ITSM components, wherein let us say one of the employees is requesting for a laptop change due to some reasons. So even that employee could raise a request, and then the approval can be an IT head or whoever is going to be in the IT operations team, right? So it can be that way as well, wherein it is both for the end customers and as well as for the internal employees. And also the solution is kind of vertical agnostic, as you have rightly mentioned, right? So it's all about the product being there. It can be tweaked according to the needs, and then the magnitude and scale can be absolutely changed, or it can be upgraded or downgraded based on the particular business requirement. You are right there, Jagjit.
Thank you so much, Raghavendra.
Yeah. And so another part where we can probably leverage the power is in terms of there are two ways wherein a help desk or a typical support desk functions, right? One is remotely, wherein the particular issues can be tracked by the agents or the customer service representatives or the employee service representatives who are going to be there in the help desk. On the other hand, there is going to be a condition wherein some of the field engineers or the field service people going to the particular customer location and then doing things. So let us say for one of the leading telecommunication and internet service providers based out of India, they had frequent outages during one of the most severe of the cyclones. And this continued for around 30 days, even after the cyclone had gone, because due to some reasons, the outage was recurring. So at that point of time, we were able to set up the field service management or the field service module, wherein all the issues were tagged to the field engineers, and based on the proximity of the customer, the nearest field service person was tagged, and they were allocated this particular service request so that the field engineers could directly go to the customer's place, and then they could really see what was the major issue for the outage and how they will be able to set that right. And after setting them right, they will be able to get the acknowledgement from the customer through a digital signature. Post that, the same service request can be updated in the original ticket which the customer had raised. So here, the communication between the remote help desk agent and the field engineer was so seamless because the field engineer had an app wherein the service requests were easily identifiable. So the remote help desk consultant just had to raise a service request and it would hit the field service engineer's mobile app, and from there on, they will be able to resolve the conversation. So that is one aspect of the service excellence, wherein we will be able to go to the field and then resolve the customer complaints. And this is more familiar or more suited to the various manufacturing, retail, e-commerce platform, wherein there's going to be a kind of an interaction between the field people along with the customers. So this is one use case which I thought I will showcase. And finally, how to effortlessly grow the customer value. So this is wherein I would like to talk about one more case wherein the loan section of a leading BFSI bank was trying to improve the conversion rate. So it is a familiar thing wherein we always are getting bombarded with a lot of calls from banks, right? So do you require loan? Because you might have seen that in the same week, you might have received call from the same bank. That is wherein we were able to position a kind of a CRM solution wherein we were able to classify the leads into various stages. And we help the brand to track the leads across the various stages. And if they were already reached, what is that particular status, so that the next sales agent will not be reaching the same person again. So there was a clear demarcation on which particular lead a particular sales agent needs to concentrate. So this greatly helped the sales agent in terms of increasing their conversion rate. So they were able to concentrate more into the hot leads. And also we had something called as the lead prediction score, using which the sales agent could really pick all those hot leads which had higher probability of conversion. So on one end, the conversion increased. On the other hand, the customers are not bombarded with calls from that particular bank. So this was one particular use case which I thought really helped to really improve the customer value. And imagine a person getting bombarded with calls now. That doesn't happen because it's not a qualified lead. He had already rejected the advances for a loan. So this is how the customer value improved. So this is one use case which I thought we will share. And so these are some of the frameworks using which you will be able to really grow the customer value. You will be able to delight customers. And at the same time, you will be able to ensure that the internal teams which are going to be in this operations are able to deliver their work to their best efficiency. And Jagjit, so that we have completed the framework, would you like to really advise to the audience as of how they can get started in terms of having that interaction or the engagement with us so that they are able to optimize their particular workflow?
Yeah, Raghavendra, that's actually really very simple, because to get started, you have to actually get going first. And, well begun is half done. So what you should actually be looking back when you go back to your organization is that you look for your broken journeys and look for moments that are actually causing disruption in the flow. And once you have identified that, the best thing or, the recommendation that I would have actually is that, you look at the use case scenario, look at your low hanging fruits and the moments that matter. Exactly. And which are requiring immediate addressal to you. So those cases you can pick up and then you can highlight which in the order of importance, pick one, run a pilot, see if the pilot is successful and then scale it. And if the scale works as per your expectation, then you can probably replicate it across the organization. That's my recommendation to the participants. So it's you begin and you begin quick. So identify the moments that matter.
fair enough, Jagjit. That makes a lot of sense because at the end of the day, we need to make that start right. Identify a few of the particular flows which needs to be refined. And as you rightly mentioned, we can start with the POC and then take it from there on, wherein we can have a face-to-face implementation and then get and solve the use case accordingly. Yeah.
Sure. Thanks so much. So with this, we open up for the next poll question before we open up the session for Q&A. Can you bring up the poll question, please?
Jagjit, I see omni-channel as an answer. It's a key requirement.
I think that is in line with the topic of the webinar. So it's good to see that the audience are getting connected to the concept.
It has to work in tandem because, if the data points are not integrated, then only omni-channel will not work. So it has to be a blend of everything.
So yes, Ekta this side again. So first, I would like to thank you all the speakers for sharing your interesting insights. I would like to invite questions from the audience and also requesting you all once again to please share your feedback, which is provided on the chat box continuously via me. And of course, I've mentioned the winners will have exciting vouchers based on being active on the chat box, sharing your feedback with us, the link which we have shared, and engaging with the Q&A session. So all the speakers, I have noted few questions that we have Mr. from Harish Kumar. He had a question like, does speech analytics understand regional languages and produce results? Any one of you?
So I would like to take it up. So yes, we do have that option. So we can, as Indian language has got a different way of pronunciation and all, we can start with a POC. We can do some testing, and as it's an AI-based solution, so it will be better and better. So we can work it out.
Anyone, any thoughts from any other speakers? Or should I move on to the next question?
No, it's actually Ekta, Swana rightly mentioned, since it's an engine and, we have a very different dialect in which we follow in India, it needs to be trained, and that evaluation takes place only over a period of time. So we can start with the accuracy for about 50 to 60%, and then it evolves to about 80%. If anybody comes back and tells you that you'll have 100% accuracy here, the information is a bluff. But yes, we're getting there.
Thank you so much. We had one more questions coming from Harish Kumar. He was asking, is the system intelligent to index tickets?
Yes, of course, in terms of indexing the ticket or auto-triaging the ticket to different groups or allocating tickets to different groups. So all these things are possible through smart automations. So it is very much possible, and we are willing to really hear at the specific use case and take it forward as well. So it is very much possible.
Thank you, Raghavendra. There's one more question from Eluriza Sardar to the speakers. Can one switch between the channels in a seamless manner?
Yes, Ekta, I tried answering that beforehand. When I took the example with Raghavendra, I'll take the same example back. like for example, you know that you want to have your incoming call flow reduced, whether it is for a person who's sitting behind the desk and managing supplier relationships, or a person who's managing a customer service, or managing sales, any department, or for that matter logistics, and you want to reduce the incoming call flow. We can give a first hand interaction as a bot, being the medium, have standard FAQs listed out basis the processes that you have and the questions that you normally get, reduce the flow there. And in case the questions are not getting answered with your FAQs, then you can bring in a live agent. The live agent does not help. You can take the call on the phone. Once the call is completed on the phone, you can follow it up with a message, and you can continue interaction using WhatsApp as well. So this is a classic example of blending all the channels of communication here. And this information, for that matter, in case you have done an integration back with the CRM, it can also help you raise a ticket and track the ticket till the ticket is closed. Ekta.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Thank you. Thank you so much. We also have one question, sir, talking about, can this platform also help in collecting orders from retailers real time?
I'll take that question. So if we have an already existing integration wherein that particular product is willing to open up the APIs, then we are happy to do. And also we have a lot of products who have been listed in the marketplace. So like say, we have a native integration with Shopify. So all the information from Shopify can be pulled in wherein about the retailer or whoever is going to be the end user. So that is one way. Or if you want a particular platform which is going to be new and then you want the orders to flow from there, then we can explore the option of integrating with that platforms as well. And it is very much doable.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Question from Mr. Mahesh Singh. Can you tell us more about omni-channel customer experience? Why it matters more today than ever?
I think Suhana had addressed this in the initial part of her slide, wherein, and Jagit was mentioning, right, the customers of today's age are spoiled brats. Wherein,
so we did talk about it initially.
Yeah.
Yes. As Raghavendra rightly pointed out, we did talk about initially. So we do have an option of communication, multi-channel communication at in one window. That's why we say omni-channel. So it can be a voice call, it can be a messenger services, it can be a WhatsApp chat or a web chat. So all can be under one in one window, and as you say, or what Jagjit quoted, now the customer is pampered or spoiled with choices. So he can have any mode of communication, and an agent can take any mode of communication coming in.
Yeah, just to add to that, the thought is, while all the channels, voice, message, WhatsApp, they can also be classified under multi-channel. The differentiation here is that, it's available to you under a single window as an integrated service. You can choose what you want to choose, when you want to choose, if it is integrated in the backend, in your systems and process flow, and the data points also are integrated. That makes it seamless and different. So it has to be contextual based and not basis, you go and pick one and then you say that, okay, now I don't want to choose that and I want to go ahead and choose another one and then interact with that medium, and then you have to go and explain your story all over again. So unless you need to have the flow seamless, and it has to be contextual in nature, and the person who wants to interact with you can have the choice of medium chosen from their side to interact with you, and you should be able to allow that to the customer.
Thank you.
So, yes, as
Yeah,
rightly
please,
said
ma'am.
to Jagjeet, as rightly said by Jagjeet, in one window, if the client is communicating and the information flow to the CRM, which Raghavendra has been talking about, will actually help for the next agent or a next person taking the call, where he can tell what is the history that has happened instead of the client repeating it. So if A has called and he's spoken, and then he calls back again, the second agent takes the call. He has a data of what was the conversation which has happened. The client doesn't have to repeat what he has told. So that's the whole, and that is when it comes to the data or the information flow. But when we are talking about omni-channel, I'm talking about one window where they say, okay, there is voice, there is chat, everything in one window. So the agent doesn't have to toggle between windows to talk to the client. That's one pitch that we talk about. Thank you.
Thanks, Vanu. There was one more question in the chat box by Sadesh. Like, does the ticketing tool help only in customers facing roles or has a merit across organization? So your thoughts, any of you?
I think this question was also answered wherein Jagit had asked a similar question. So here, it is not only about the end customer facing kind of a role. It can be even for an internal employee. So take for a condition, let us say an employee is going to join an organization and he requests a laptop from the organization. So how that flow can be set up. So how that flow needs to get approved by the various hierarchy. And finally, if the asset is going to be transferred to that particular employee, how that is getting registered in the system and how the inventory is getting updated that one laptop has been sent to the employee. So all this tracking can be done for an internal employee as well. So based on that particular use case, it can be deployed anywhere. So it is not only about end customer, it can be any end user, to put it more precisely.
Thank you. So yes, before we close, any final thoughts or any last questions where audience would like to raise a hand and put to our wonderful set of speakers? I think this was very engaging and informative from all three of you. So all the questions have been answered. So yes, so on this closing note again, I would like to thank all our lovely audience for taking out your precious time and being here. I hope you all had a great session interacting with our speakers. We shall share the entire video session and would love to reconnect you with our partners for a brainstorming engagement. Also requesting that already the link of the feedback form has been shared. Please fill in, and as per the contest, we shall get back to you with the 3 winners who have been engaging this forum, answering all the polls and have shared the feedback form. And of course, I'm getting lovely feedbacks on my private chat that this has been an informative session. So of course, the thank you goes to all our 3 speakers for making it so interesting and engaging. So thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day ahead, and we shall be reconnecting and sharing the entire session video with all the audiences. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.